Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button because today's video is going to completely flip everything you thought you knew about the Crusades. It's 1095. Pope Urban II stands before a massive crowd in Clermont, France, telling a horrifying story. Our Christian brothers in Jerusalem are being tortured and murdered by the Saracens. Christian pilgrims can no longer visit the tomb of Christ. We must take up arms and rescue them. The crowd erupts. Deus vult. God wills it. This speech launched the First Crusade, sending thousands of European knights to Jerusalem on a holy mission to save persecuted Christians. There's just one problem. It was almost entirely a lie. 4 decades before the Crusades, Muslim rulers in Jerusalem were actively protecting Christian pilgrims, maintaining Christian holy sites, and creating one of the most religiously diverse cities in the medieval world. Then the Crusaders showed up and destroyed it all. This is the untold story of Jerusalem before the Crusades. Let's dive in. Let's go back to 638 CE. Muslim armies under Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab arrived at Jerusalem's gates. According to both Muslim and Christian sources, Umar negotiated a peaceful surrender. Then he did something remarkable. He issued the Covenant of Umar, guaranteeing Christian safety and rights. This is the protection granted to the people of Jerusalem. Their churches will not be destroyed. Their property will not be damaged. This was enforced policy. The Byzantine historian Theophanes confirmed Christians lived freely in Jerusalem. Here's the best part. When invited to pray inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Christianity's holiest site, Umar refused. Why? He feared future Muslims might convert it to a mosque. So he prayed outside to protect the church for Christians. This is 638 CE, when religious tolerance was rare anywhere in the world. Fast forward to the 10th to 11th centuries under Fatimid rule. Thousands of Christian pilgrims were traveling from Europe to Jerusalem every year, and the Muslim authorities protected them. The Fatimid caliphs maintained roads, provided security escorts, and established hostels for pilgrims. French monk Raoul Glaber, writing around 1030, described an innumerable multitude of pilgrims visiting Jerusalem safely. German Bishop Gunther, who visited in 1065, wrote about being received courteously by Muslim authorities with full access to Christian holy sites. These are Christian pilgrims describing their actual experiences. So if Christians were being persecuted, if they couldn't visit holy sites, if Muslim rulers were hostile, why are Christian pilgrims writing about how well they were treated? The answer: Pope Urban II was lying. Before we continue, hit that like button if this is eye-opening. It helps share this story. Jerusalem under Fatimid rule was remarkable. This wasn't just tolerance, it was active multiculturalism. The Fatimids employed Christians and Jews in high government positions. The vizier of Caliph al-Hakim was a Christian named Isa ibn Nestorius. Imagine the reverse in medieval Europe. Impossible. The city had quarters for different religions, but people moved freely between them. They traded, lived as neighbors. When the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was damaged in an earthquake in 1033, the Fatimid Caliph funded repairs using Byzantine craftsmen sent by the Byzantine Emperor. A Muslim Caliph and Christian Emperor cooperating to restore Christianity's holiest site. Now, I need to address Caliph al-Hakim. Yes, he persecuted Christians and even destroyed the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in 1009. But contemporary sources, Muslim and Christian, describe him as mentally unstable. He persecuted Muslims too. This was universally condemned as an aberration, not policy. His son immediately rebuilt the church. Compare this to Christian Europe. In 1066, there was a massacre of Jews in Granada. In 1096, as the First Crusade organized, Crusader armies massacred thousands of Jews in the Rhineland before even leaving Europe. Persecution of religious minorities was the norm in medieval Europe. In Fatimid Jerusalem, it was the exception. By the 1080s, pilgrimage was at record levels. Christian holy sites were maintained. The city was peaceful. Christian pilgrim Ceolwulf, writing in 1102 after the Crusaders conquered Jerusalem, said Christians and Muslims had lived peacefully together before, and that peace was destroyed by the Crusade. He literally says the city was better under Muslim rule. So when Pope Urban II claimed Christians in Jerusalem needed rescuing, he was either catastrophically misinformed or deliberately lying. The evidence suggests the latter. The Byzantine emperor had asked for military help against Seljuk Turks threatening Byzantine territory in Turkey, not Jerusalem. Urban transformed this into a holy war to liberate a city that didn't need liberating. Drop a comment. Did you learn any of this in school? June 7, 1099. The First Crusade arrives at Jerusalem's walls after 3 years of brutal warfare. Inside, the Fatimid governor expels Christians, not from hostility, but because he fears they might open the gates to the Crusaders. The crusade itself creates the persecution it claimed to prevent. July 15, 1099. The Crusaders breach the walls. What happens next is one of history's most horrific massacres. And we know because the Crusaders boasted about it in their own chronicles. The Gesta Franco-Rum, written by a Crusader who was there. Numbers of Saracens were beheaded. In the streets were seen piles of heads and hands and feet. One rode about everywhere amid the corpses of men and horses. Raymond of Aguilars, another Crusader. In the Temple of Solomon, men rode in blood up to their knees and bridle reins. Blood. Up to their knees. These aren't enemy exaggerations. These are Crusaders' own accounts, written proudly as glorious deeds. They massacred Muslims. They herded Jews into a synagogue and burned it with them inside. They even killed Eastern Orthodox Christians, fellow Christians who didn't recognize Rome's Pope. Historical estimates: 30,000 to 40,000 killed in a city of maybe 50,000 to 60,000 people. After the massacre, they went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, protected by Muslims for 460 years, and prayed, tracking blood through Christianity's holiest site. Muslim historian Ibn al-Athir wrote, "They killed more than 70,000 people. The Jews were burned alive in their synagogues." The Crusaders established the Kingdom of Jerusalem. How did they govern? Muslims and Jews were expelled. Those remaining became second-class citizens or slaves. Mosques converted to churches or stables. The Dome of the Rock became a church. Muslim and Jewish pilgrimage was banned. The irony: pilgrimage that worked fine under Muslim protection now needed Christian protection, from Christians who'd massacred tens of thousands to liberate it. The Crusader kingdom was one of medieval history's most religiously intolerant states. While Muslim Spain experienced interfaith cooperation, the Crusader states practiced ethnic cleansing. Before we continue, comment below. How different is this from what you were taught? Why does this matter 1,000 years later? Because the myths we believe about the Crusades shape how we see the world today. The idea that the Crusades were defensive, that Muslims have always been hostile to Christians. This shapes modern politics and foreign policy. But it's based on a lie told in 1095 and repeated until it became truth. The reality: before the Crusades, Jerusalem was one of medieval history's most religiously diverse and tolerant cities. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived together in relative peace. The Crusades destroyed that. And here's the tragedy: after the Crusaders left, that tolerance returned. When Saladin recaptured Jerusalem in 1187, he explicitly ordered no massacre. He allowed Christians to leave safely or stay under Muslim rule. He restored access to Christian holy sites. Historian Imad ad-Din wrote that Saladin preferred forgiveness to vengeance. Compared to the Crusaders' behavior 88 years earlier, his mercy was extraordinary. For the next 800 years until the 20th century, Jerusalem remained mostly under Muslim rule. And for most of that time, Christians and Jews could visit and worship relatively freely. Was it perfect? No. Were there periods of persecution? Yes. But the baseline was tolerance. Compare that to Christian Europe, Spanish Inquisition, expulsion of Jews from England, France, Spain, Protestant Catholic wars, witch trials, religious wars devastating Europe. I'm not saying one civilization was better. I'm saying the narrative of tolerant Christian West versus intolerant Muslim East is backwards. For much of medieval history, the Islamic world was more tolerant. And here's why this matters today: clash of civilizations rhetoric is everywhere. Politicians talk about Islam and the West as eternally opposed. Jerusalem before the Crusades proves that's false. Different religious communities can live peacefully. Religious tolerance isn't a modern Western invention. It's a timeless human possibility. The Crusades weren't civilization versus barbarism. They were barbarism against civilization. Am I saying medieval Islam was perfect? No. That there was never Muslim persecution? No. That the modern Middle East is paradise? Definitely not. What I'm saying, history is complicated. The good guys versus bad guys narrative about the Crusades is propaganda. Pope Urban II lied. Christian pilgrims were safer in Muslim Jerusalem than Jews were in Christian Europe. The Crusades began with a massacre of innocents. This isn't about making modern people feel guilty. This is about understanding what actually happened so we can learn from it. The lesson: intolerance isn't inherent to any religion. It's a choice. The Fatimid caliphs chose tolerance. Pope Urban chose holy war. Saladin chose mercy. The Crusaders chose massacre. We're still making similar choices today. Every time politicians demonize entire religions, they're making Pope Urban's choice. That's why this story matters. We're still living with the Crusades' consequences. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Western interventions, Islamophobia, anti-Western sentiment, all have roots in the Crusades and the myths we tell about them. What other historical myths should I debunk? Drop suggestions in the comments. And if this changed your perspective, hit that like button. We started with Pope Urban II's speech in 1095, a speech that launched one of history's bloodiest religious wars based on lies. We discovered that for 460 years, Jerusalem under Muslim rule was where Christian pilgrims visited safely, where churches were protected, where religious diversity was the norm. Then we witnessed the horror when Crusaders arrived, not as liberators, but as conquerors who massacred tens of thousands. This isn't the story in textbooks. It's not in movies. It doesn't fit modern political narratives. But it's the truth. And the truth matters. History isn't just about the past. It's about how we understand ourselves now and what future we want to build. Pre-Crusade Jerusalem shows us that religious tolerance is possible. That diversity can be a strength. That people of different faiths can coexist. It also shows how quickly they can be destroyed by leaders who choose violence over peace, who spread lies instead of truth. The Crusades weren't inevitable. They were the result of specific choices made by specific people. We're still making those choices today. So what choice will you make? When you hear politicians demonizing entire religions, will you remember Jerusalem in 1098, where Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived together? When you see Clash of Civilizations narratives, will you remember the Fatimid caliphs who protected Christian holy sites? When you hear calls for religious conflict, will you remember the tens of thousands slaughtered in 1099 in God's name? Jerusalem before the Crusades wasn't perfect, but it was proof that different peoples, different religions, different cultures can coexist peacefully. We just have to choose it. Thanks for watching. If this challenged your assumptions, hit that like button. Subscribe for more content that digs beneath historical myths. Turn on notifications. I've got more videos coming that'll challenge everything you think you know. Comment below. What surprised you most? Share this video. The algorithm won't promote challenging content, so sharing is how we spread truth. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, keep seeking the truth. History is written by the victors, but the truth is written in the archives. The archives tell a very different story than the one we've been taught.